between the summer, between my junior and senior year at Harvard, I went to San Francisco by myself. I'd been staying with Raven on Doheny Drive, where she was renting an apartment before she had her apartment on Phyllis Avenue. And her friend Margarita had shared an apartment with her. And Margarita Berga de Lema, who was from Puerto Rico, and her grandfather had been governor of Puerto Rico during the Spanish-American Civil War. It was an interesting story. When the Americans, led by Theodore Roosevelt, who was the big macho cowboy with hunting deer, elephant guns and all that stuff. And I had pictures of him, all dressed as a big warrior, big game hunter and so on, shooting lions and et cetera, et cetera. And he wasn't quite as bad as Monroe with the Monroe Doctrine, but he was pretty close to it. So he was President of the United States, closely related to first cousin of Franklin Roosevelt. And Teddy Roosevelt. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where I was before I went to San Francisco. I was in Los Angeles on Doheny Drive, staying in an apartment that Raven rented with her friend Margarita Berga de Lema. Now, they were a family, aristocratic, Spanish-speaking family in Puerto Rico. Her grandfather had been governor of Puerto Rico. And governor of Puerto Rico meant that he reported to the court of the Spanish king, because it was a Spanish colony. And when the United States, during President Theodore Roosevelt's term as president, entered the Spanish-American War, the United States troops, carried by boatloads from, I don't know where they were based, in Florida or where, when they swarmed into Puerto Rico, this beautiful island, they had actually attacked the governor's residence. And for him to, what his deal with the U.S. government was for him to surrender? That he could fly the Spanish flag from his housetop for the duration of his life.
I really would like to.
Did you hear that?
He's doing a movie, don't talk.
But did you hear it? He was flying the Spanish flag from his rooftop for the duration of his life. And so I flew up to San Francisco from LA and took a cab from the airport to Market Square, and then I walked up the hill. I was so excited about what I was seeing. I was just like, I got high looking at the city and these views.
Very beautiful.
I walked for 6 hours straight and found this little, my whole objective was to see how little money I could spend. I ate in cafeterias for like $3 to $4 a day. I found a little resident hotel, $10 a week. Bathroom at the end of the hall, and bath. It's a nice room. Not that big, but big enough the bed was comfortable. So I'd walk all over the city. So I walked like for 7 hours, walking up to the highest points, and to Nob Hill and all these various wonderful places where you look out across the bay, and see Berkeley and Oakland and all that, and the hills around there, and Napa Valley. I don't think it looked as far as Napa Valley. This was my first experience of San Francisco. So anyway, I got in my hotel, very comfortable, and I go out in the morning down to the Market Square where there was a cafeteria and get a cup of coffee, and if I were eating lunch, I just order soup. That's all, soup. So I was living on like, for meals, maybe $4, $4.50. $10.50 for the hotel room. Everything that there, there were no extras at this hotel. So I walked up the street, and I saw this sign saying Judo. I walked in, small studio, with a wooden floor. We didn't use sneakers or anything. We just used bare feet. And I had studied karate with a Marine Corps. The main instructor for karate for the U.S. Marine Corps, who was living in Knoxville. His name was Long. He taught it in a very simple way. Didn't do sparring, only movements, exercises.
Kicks?
All the kicks, the blocks. You block somebody kicking you in the ball, and nobody could hit me. I never got hit. Never. Right hand was like this, left hand, same movement. I can't do it now. I would never probably be able to do that again, as long as I live.
Well, you're 76.
And then this movement, somebody trying to hit you on the top of the head, boom. You break their arm. You break a person's wrist who's hitting you. You break this bone right between the elbow and the fist or the wrist. This bone right here, it's a rather weak bone. Blow like that, with your fist, or the shuto, the hitting part that you break bricks with, or cedar boards when you do a judo chop or a karate chop. You can split an oak board, 8 by 10 inches long. You do that over and over, on a boxing, one of those swinging punching bags. You come in and you're hitting this way to the side, into a person's ribs, and then you follow with another shuto blow with the left hand, swinging around and hit them in the back of the neck. That's a rabbit punch. You can kill somebody that way. Somebody just got killed the other day in Australia. Great soccer, great cricket player. The ball bounced up from his bat, from another person's bat and hit him in the back of the neck, you kill him. That's where you hit somebody with a rabbit punch or Judo, the back of your hand. So with Harold Long, I studied like 4 months in Knoxville one summer, karate. Then, so I wasn't that impressed with karate. I mean, it has none of the interesting qualities, let's say, of the Chinese martial arts like Shaolin, Baccarat, Kung Fu, any of that stuff, which I did with Aaron Kritching for years. 38 years I did all that Chinese martial arts.
He taught you what exactly?
What?
He taught you Tai Chi or
Taught
Tai
me
Chi
Shaolin.
and Shaolin?
Shaolin and Tai Chi. And his wife taught me the Grand Master's daughter.
She was great. I studied with her.
In fact, I took it 3 times and then took it over with her. To correct you, she'd laugh at you.
She was excellent.
No, shake her hand, And like if you're doing this movement like this, say, no, not like this. It's to extend and then that. Just as simple as that. And everything was fine-tuned. I think I repeated the whole Tai Chi course with her. So I made 3 times. I'd done it with him, with a large class, and then I did it with her again. 3 times it added up to. So here I am, alone, totally alone. One of the first times in my life, away from my family and friends, in a strange place. I walk up the street, I see this Judo sign. I go in and there's this very nice young Japanese instructor who's maybe 25, about my size. And the first thing you learn is how to fall. First of all, it gives you the Judo costume, this wonderful cotton costume. You take your belt, this cotton belt, and you make a square knot around your waist. It's very snug. It feels good. This hug, the top of this cotton padded coat that you wear to practice the Judo is very comforting and hugs your shoulders. Wraps around your shoulders, hugging it, especially when you tie the belt the right way. And then you've got these short pants that come down to your ankles, and so first thing is learn to fall and how to sit back on the hard floor. No mat like wrestling, a hard wooden floor, no shoes, bare feet. So you throw your leg out and you sit back on your rump and you roll back, and doesn't hurt your butt or your coccyx when you sit back. So that first classes were just learning to fall, and then you do some things where it's like a tumbling move. With your hand you just flip over forwards and roll out, and sitting up, and then first moves like the Seanagi, which is one of the first things where you come around, you're learning how to push against your opponent, and then when he pushes back, you use his momentum and pull him in the direction he's pushing you. So you use his energy to get him to defensively move against you, to resist you, As soon as he resists, you're going to be off balance. As soon as his foot is extended, all you need to do is go around and hook that foot and push him back, and he's down. And then the other one is you come behind his back and behind his hip. You put your hand around the back of his cranium, and then over he goes. You hook your arm around his back, and over he goes, and he's down on the ground. So then,
what about the one where you just take the guys with the collar and you throw them across the room?
No, we didn't do that.
I've seen that.
Oh, I never learned that. There's another one that's even more impressive.
Lift him up. Now, what about the one where you can take the guy's collar, you lift him up, yasta, and you throw him across the room?
Hey, we didn't do that.
That's not judo?
Well, I don't know if maybe it is judo, but that's not one of the things I learned. I'm telling you what I learned. And there's another one.
I've seen a guy being thrown across an entire room and hit.
Sounds more like Aikido. I know we were trying to record this. Why are you sneezing?
Excuse me, but, I can't help it.
Well, maybe we should just start this over. We're going the other
Can I have the paper towels there?
Well, anyway, after I learned all the judo moves, and
could you please go to another room? Another room.
No, I'm not leaving.
how can we do this?
So it's karate, judo, and then you learn Shaolin and Tai Chi in Cambridge, Massachusetts?
Yeah, with Leon Keishi and his wife, the daughter of the Grand Master.
She was a terrific teacher.
It was in Central, when they were in Central Square, now they're in East Cambridge, across the tracks. On First Street, or First or Second Street. So, finally after, it was wonderful. I mean, San Francisco was so mild in the summer. I mean, Knoxville was like 98 degrees, 100% humidity. Horrible. You can't live there without a swimming pool.
Or air conditioning.
Or air conditioning. And we never had good air conditioning.
It was good.
What?
It was pretty good.
No, it wasn't. It's not for my part. So it's like 68 degrees at the most, 72 degrees in San Francisco. So I walk up the street, do a judo class, come back to my hotel, take a bath, and then I did that for like 7 weeks. And one day, he said, it's time for you. I basically had a match with everybody in the class.
Is that when you
30
broke your leg?
I didn't break it. This guy was way too heavy. He was like 180 or 90 pounds. And I had to throw him. He's telling me what to do, the teacher. Take so-and-so there, And so do the Sanagi or whatever it is. And this is one where you're throwing using your leg to lift him. And so he's up in the air, 190 pounds. He comes down. I have to stand up.
No, you don't. Just describe it.
he comes down all his weight on this leg, and it rips out all the ligaments on this side of my knee. All ripped out. I mean, it's the most painful thing. And so that was the black belt. That was the test for black belt, which I passed.
You passed, but you were fucked.
Well, I mean, I had to go to a doctor and get an X-ray, get a cane, and basically I couldn't do much of anything. I couldn't take walks, which I've been doing every day, walking all over this hill, up to, it was a kind of a beautiful club up there at the top. There was the Fairmont Hotel. Have you been to San Francisco?
Just once.
Anyway, so I go back to my room. I had my leg all wrapped up to take the pressure off, the swelling and so on. And I don't know, probably some aspirin or something to bring down inflammation. It was very painful. So I decided, since I couldn't do anything, I'd go see somebody I'd heard about all my life, Carl Beecher, who lived in Portland, who had taught my father harmony at Northwestern, his first course. He's a composer of piano music. We spent like 14 years in Berlin, came from a little town out near where Dorsey Wallace came from, and also Julia Norris, Julia Kilmer.
And also F.W. de P.
Right. It was one of these perfect late 19th century towns where everybody knew each other. It was a perfect complement of every kind of institution that a small town could offer. Good school, a church, parks, the banks, courthouse, mayor's office. So, Carl Beecher, his mother had a great sense of humor. When he came home from Berlin, she met him, got some friends of his to meet him at the station and to mock him because they thought he was hot stuff. And they had kazoos, and they had a kazoo band, and they played kazoos, welcome home and everything. And then he became dean of School of Music at Northwestern. And he was gay. He was a very sweet person. And I just called him up on the phone and said, "This is David Van Vactor's son, Davey. I just hurt my leg learning judo. I can't do anything else. I just thought I'd take a trip this weekend. I'd come see you in Portland." So I went a taxi into his address, and visiting him was the ex-wife of Ernest Hemingway, Hadley, and her husband, Palmyra, was one of the Second World War famous war correspondents. So I spent the whole weekend with him and Carl, getting to know Carl, talking about literature and talking about what I knew about Faulkner and, anybody they wanted to talk about. Shakespeare. It was wonderful. Carl cooked all the meals, and his sister lived in Portland. Her husband was one of the top corporate lawyers in Portland. His brother also lived in Portland. His name was Vern, unmarried, but he had a lady friend. He'd have a date with to have sex once a month. I mean, there'll be no libel about that sort of thing. So she happens to be true.
Could you just move on from that? Just don't go back. Keep circling around it.
No, I just want to talk about the most interesting thing about Carl Beecher, besides being a composer. When he was 50 years old, after like 15 years of being dean of the School of Music and having to fire one of his professors for getting female students to come in and sit on his lap and get them all kind of worked up and then,
Oh, Jesus. Don't talk about that online.
oh, come on.
This is public, David.
What do you mean?
This video is public. Could you stop that?
Well, he had to fire him. I don't go into any detail. This is my father's best friend's father that was fired. Osborne McConaughey Sr., he'd written 50 books on music education and conducted the Evanston High School Training Orchestra. So that was traumatic for Carl. So he heard about a friend of his who was an anthropologist and doing research in Tahiti, the Polynesian customs. So he decided to go to Tahiti. And there in Tahiti, he met this, spent time with this anthropologist, went all over the island, and and having been a bachelor all his life, he met this Polynesian woman, Uhura, and married her. Had this glorious love life, and was able, through her family, to live on this island called Moorea, across from Tahiti. Like a mile of white sand beaches, and streams coming out of the mountains down to his land.
The kind of island that your mother and sister would have loved to visit.
I know. Anyway, Carl lived there for 15 years, had 2 daughters, and then he decided that he didn't want his children to grow up being half-breed, white, half-native, so that he had to bring them back to the U.S. So he moved Uhura and his 2 daughters, Helen, and I forget the other girl's name, Helen Beecher and her sister, back to Portland.
Half-breed is a racist term.
But he didn't want that word.
I understand.
Those words applied to his daughters, so he
I understand
brought them to Portland.
Portland, Oregon?
Yeah. And
Portland, Oregon didn't have racist people?
No, not at that time. They had no race problem. The schools were integrated, I think. Anyway, let me just finish. Don't keep interrupting me, please. I can't finish it if you do that. So they went to school there, and Uhura was his wife and raised her children there happily. And then he would to continue composing music, continue keeping his skill as a pianist in top form. I mean, don't forget he'd been in Berlin from the age of 10 to 14 or 20, like for almost 15 years, were the best teachers that Berlin could provide.
At the conservatory?
Yeah. And So I mean, keeping your a kind of virtuoso skill up to speed meant many hours of practice. 8 or 9 hours a day of practice. So he closed his door and try to write. Maybe get some time to try to write music. After maybe taking care of household affairs and paying bills, etc. And taking care of his affairs. Uhura didn't like his being shut up in his room. And one day, she took an axe. And, he'd go in and close his door. I don't think he locked it. But one day, she took an axe to the door and tried to break it down, beat right through the top of the door, up to the frame. And then, so they were having trouble, obviously. She was jealous of his private time. And there was this purser on a boat that came back and forth from the islands, the South Pacific islands, like Samoa, and from any of the French territories to the West Coast to either San Pedro, the port of Los Angeles, or to Portland, which is the port of Washington State or Oregon State. And this man's name was Reuben Doom. She had a love affair with him, and this led to
Mr. Doom.
Yeah,
Who had a love affair?
Uhura. I mean, Raven met Uhura. I never met her. I mean, I heard a lot about. So he had a lot of pictures of her. She was very beautiful, and I heard all about how they spent their days, and
sounds like a destructive relationship.
No, it was very good when they were on Morea.
Right, but an axe to the door, and then she has to have affairs.
Just a minute. Let me just go on. I mean, they go out and they go fishing for crayfish in these streams, and then they gather. They had coconuts, copras, I think you call it, and breadfruit. They had gardenias all over the island. She would take the gardenias and put them in the sun, and they'd reap the gardenia oil, and which she would use on her black hair, long black hair. So she smelled just absolutely beautiful. And they take these long walks. They go swimming, and this beautiful beach, and the water is fantastic, beautiful waves. And then he was called Taiatui in Polynesia, and his best friend Manutahia was her cousin, and her grandmother's name was Mama Ruau. And this is the way people died there.
I'm not on the computer, please.
When her grandmother was ready to die, Mama Ruau called in all her grandchildren, and they come in and just to talk to them before her death. And she would sit with her back against their back. They sat that way, and finally, at one point, she just lay over to her side, and she was gone. And when women had children, they didn't go to a hospital. They just sort of squatted, and out plopped the embryo. I mean,
the baby.
Everything is done there about sexuality in this way that is so amazing. You know, it's like total relaxation of muscles and acceptance. Uh, Cousins have, let's say, have a fiance. If they think maybe they're not quite ready to get married, they might give that fiance to their first cousin because they see that that might be a better match. I mean, they do amazing things, and there's the sort of the leader of the whole clan. He's sort of the king of the of this society that develops among family members. I mean, the things are totally different. Um, and Carl formed this trio. There was a couple of French musicians, and he gave regular concerts every week of all the classics for string trio, piano, and Shaolin violin. And I mean, that went on for like 30 years. That's what he did in the main town of Tahiti. And there were a lot of interesting French people. There's some very interesting French people in this trio. And, you know, people had known Gauguin. They would live there for years and years, painting the Polynesian women so beautifully. And there was also the Conrad Hall, who wrote Mutiny on the Bounty, who had made a huge success with that book. He was there. So he had interesting, even literary friends. And some of the stories he told just were so crisp and short. They were like a de Maupassant story. I mean, they're just incredible, these stories. I mean, and I heard all these things. It was just such a riches for me about the life he'd had there. And so after Uhura and he divorced, he taught in a conservatory there for a while in Portland. His daughters were getting their education, and finally Helen got married to a rich boy, who then had some kind of rock band. And Raven knew them down. They moved down to L.A. Raven knew them. She also met Uhura, Helen's mother, and I forget her husband's name. He's a nice guy. They had money in the family, so he started a rock band. He's pretty good. Had a pretty good career having a band in L.A. And I think he was a guitar player and singer. And then Carl finally just got. He was, I think, about 76 when I met him, and I think he died at about 95 or something. I remember my mother coming in when Helen called her about it, and I felt sad, very sad, and just went and slept for about 6 hours. He'd been such a good friend. He gave me some beautiful etchings of one of woodcut of Dürer and one of Georg Pence, which when I was really strapped for money, I sold.
I was very sorry about that.
And I know, I'm sorry I did it. But, I mean, I needed to do it. I mean, I also sold some marvelous antique guns. I had a Tower of London pirate pistol, flintlock, and then my pair of dueling pistols I bought in Chinon for 12 euros or 12 francs or something like that. They're gorgeous guns. They even have a gold engraving, you know, in one of the barrels, and beautiful checkered handles, and on one of the handles was this Medusa carving in silver on the butt. I mean, on the bottom of the handle it came around, and I sold those two guns, and the Tower of London pirate pistol, beautiful gun. But I really didn't need these guns. I told a lot of my gun collection during as a protest against the Vietnam War. In fact, I was thinking of going up to Market Square and taking an axe and just destroying them in front of people as a protest against guns. And I mean, there's so many people coming back. The body counts on TV every day. Horrible, horrible. And
I like guns.
I do too. I know how to use them. I took very good care of my collection. As far as the hunting guns, I would periodically take this kind of Hoppy's uh, cleaner, like a spirit, like alcohol. You put it on a swab, in a ramrod, and you bring it through the barrel, and just clean it. And you look in, and it's just shining like a mirror. And then on the outside, the bluing on the barrels, you take a rag or this Hoppy's cleaner and wipe the length of the barrel, and so that the bluing was always perfect. I mean, I took really good care of them. I oiled the stocks, the checkered grips, the mechanism, kept them always in cases that were leather cases, and the inside was sheepskin. They were cushions, so I mean, if you dropped the gun, it was covered with something that would never be hurt. Very careful of it, but I knew how to handle them. If I ever carried them, I always carried them down. Careful. My father taught me very carefully to be of absolute safety with the handling of firearms. And nobody ever tried to steal those guns. But when I got my divorce from Anita, I got Rayleigh Jenkins, the famous lawyer who defended the Army against McCarthy. Ray Jenkins, his son-in-law was Rayleigh Jenkins, the lawyer that John Lockridge got me, who was my lawyer, and also Anita needed a lawyer. He was her lawyer. That's how I got to custody of Davy. My mother went down to give character witness, and getting that divorce was a snap. It cost $350. So somebody was in the market for buying some antique guns, sold the whole collection for $350. I thought it was sort of ironic paying for a divorce, which was a kind of conflict. And then I went up to Storrs, Connecticut, to Yukon to get my MA. And and it was when I came to Cambridge that I started all the Tai Chi and Shaolin martial arts. It was called the American Kung Fu Club that Liam K.G. and his wife ran. It was right in Central Square, off of Franklin Avenue around the corner. It was across from the Korean Zen Center. And I go there every day, work out for 6 hours of classes, come home, take a shower. I did that for 38 years.
Well, you didn't do 6 hours a day.
Well, to begin with, to learn it. I didn't practice it, but I mean, I would go down to the park in Cambridgeport and walk into the park and do all my exercises at 6 o'clock in the morning. Then I'd go around the corner and have breakfast, fried eggs and ham at that little restaurant around the corner, which was actually a fish restaurant on it was on Prospect Street, coming down from Central Square. Well, I think that's all for me. I don't really want